When Sam abandoned me for the 8th time to go find his first love, the system declared that my mission had failed. Perhaps the system pitied me. It said that before I died, it could grant me one last wish. So, I wished for the system to erase every trace of me from this world, but to keep Sam's memory alone. Years later, the me who had once disappeared from this world reappeared before him with a new identity. He recognized me at a single glance. That night, the once untouchable CEO completely lost his mind. Chapter 1. Nicole tried to kill herself again. When Sam received Nicole's call, the hand that had been about to clink glasses with mine suddenly froze. His grip slipped, and the expensive crystal glass fell to the ground, shattering into countless fragments. Alicia. Nicole's depression has flared up again. This time it's quite serious. You know how it is. Can we make up our wedding anniversary properly after I come back? After hanging up, Sam moved quickly and decisively. His voice carried an apologetic tone, and before I could react, he had already walked to the entrance, put on his coat, and prepared to leave. Looking at the worry on his face and the hesitation-free figure, I suddenly felt that my 6 years of devotion had been nothing but a joke. Nicole was doing it on purpose. What depression did she have? Or rather, what kind of depressed person makes a scheduled phone call every time before attempting suicide? Her so-called depression was nothing more than an excuse to wedge herself between us. She couldn't have Sam, so she wouldn't let me have peace either. Sam. I was exhausted, yet I still couldn't help calling his name. If I say that if you walk out that door today, I will die, would you still go to Nicole? My tone was calm, frankly, even a little unfamiliar. After all, I had never disdained, nor wanted, to use those cheap tricks. I couldn't even respect myself to keep a man. Because I could feel it, Sam never wanted to belong to me. He never wanted to belong to me alone. Alicia, don't be ridiculous. You're not suited to playing these unreasonable games. Sam turned back to look at me sitting calmly at the dining table, frowning slightly. After hesitating for a moment, he still walked quickly toward me, pulled me into his arms, and placed a kiss on my forehead. Wait for me. I'll be back soon, okay? As if that were enough, in his eyes, a single kiss was enough to soothe all my emotions. He patted my head, turned around once more, and never looked back again. I remained sitting upright on the chair. The house, which had never been lively to begin with, was once again left with only me. My hands clenched tightly on my knees. I lowered my head and stopped holding back, letting tears stream freely down my face. What did he mean I wasn't suited to playing unreasonable games? In his heart, who was suited to playing those unreasonable games? Nicole? Chapter 2. So all these years, he had always known that Nicole was just being unreasonable. Yet he still indulged her again and again, perhaps. In his heart, choosing to marry me felt like a betrayal to Nicole. That was why he repeatedly allowed Nicole to cling to him, again and again tolerating her intrusion into our lives. Sam knew everything. He had simply been pretending to be clueless in front of me. But unfortunately, there would be no more chances after this. After 6 years together, perhaps Sam still didn't know me well enough. Because if he knew me well enough, he would understand that I never joke with anyone. I am really going to die. Detected host's 8th mission failure. The system will carry out erasure punishment. The system's mechanical voice rang inside my mind. Thinking back on the 8 years since I was bound to the system, every scene with Sam replayed vividly before my eyes. There was no such thing as transmigrating into a novel. This system had appeared silently one day. Its only mission was for me, who had just graduated from university and become Sam's assistant, to win Sam over. I truly loved him once. Loved him so deeply it carved into my bones. Loved him to the point of almost losing my sanity as I approached him. But that love had long been worn away by time until nothing remained. I sat at the table, staring at the table full of dishes I had personally prepared, every one of them his favorites, waiting bitterly for the death the system would bring. I waited quietly for a long time, yet the pain of my soul being erased never came as expected. I felt that the once silent room was now different. The ticking clock on the wall had stopped making any sound. Time itself had come to a halt, and the mechanical system spoke again in my mind. You are about to die. I know. Perhaps it was my imagination, but the mechanical voice in my head sounded much smoother than before. Then it continued. Among all the hosts I've ever bound to, you are truly the most miserable and pitiful one. It wasn't my imagination. There was a trace of pity in its voice. I pressed down the corners of my lips. I never thought that one day I would be pitied by a robot without emotions. Before I could respond, it spoke again. Considering how pitiful you are, before you die I can show mercy and grant you one wish. It paused. Then, as if feeling that wasn't rigorous enough, quickly added, of course, except for the wish to let you live. Any other wish can be granted. I knew it. The tiny spark of hope that had ignited in me was completely extinguished. I should never have believed such a good thing could exist in this world. Hurry and think. Who have you had grudges with? As long as you make a wish, I can take her away for you. The system sounded eager, almost ready to say that name aloud. But unfortunately, I had no intention of making such a wish. I admit I am somewhat pessimistic. Yet ever since I bound myself to the system and carried out its missions, I had already imagined the possibility of failure. If I truly had such a chance, what wish would I make? Should I cling to the thought that even in death I would never let Sam live peacefully? Or plan an accident so that either I or Nicole would die in front of him? But after thinking it through, I realized something. Why should I use his death, or Nicole's death, as punishment for him? Death often represents release, so I thought of the best punishment for Sam. I wish for all traces of my existence in this world to be erased. Leave only Sam's memories of me. I want him to never forget me for the rest of his life. I want him to spend the rest of his life living in loneliness filled with memories of me. Chapter 3. Sam came home the next morning. He looked slightly exhausted. Without even taking off his coat, he collapsed directly onto the sofa. Alicia. I floated in the air, watching him call my name from the sofa. He must find it strange right now. In the past, whenever he worked late or came home the next morning for any reason, the moment I heard the door close, I would always walk out of the room and place a glass of warm water in his hand. But today, there was nothing. Alicia. Not hearing any response, Sam called again tentatively. Seeing that there was still no reply, he sat up from the sofa, rubbed the corner of his eyes tiredly, and walked toward the bedroom. I actually found myself looking forward to the expression on his face when he discovered I wasn't in the room. Right now, he must think I'm just throwing a tantrum. Alicia, are you still sleeping? As he spoke, Sam pushed open the bedroom door. The curtains were tightly drawn, not letting in a single ray of sunlight. This was my habit. Whenever I was in a bad mood or after we argued, I would lock myself in a room without any light and wait for him to coax me. Still throwing a tantrum? I seemed to hear Sam chuckle softly. His voice sounded indulgent, mixed with a hint of helplessness. The sun is already up. Sleepyhead. Hurry and get up. Let's go to work together. As he spoke, he walked toward the curtains. The moment sunlight poured into the room, Sam turned around. His gaze fell on the empty bed, and he froze. He realized I wasn't in the room. What's going on? There was shock and confusion in his eyes. But after a moment, his brows knitted tightly together again. He clicked his tongue softly, and that familiar trace of impatience surfaced in his eyes. This reaction was exactly what I expected. After all, he had never been willing to spend too much emotion or time on me. I wasn't disappointed. Instead, I hoped he would look up, because if he did, he would notice that the wedding photo hanging above the bed no longer had me in it. It had become a solo portrait of him. Chapter 4. Alicia, what are you up to now? Sam's voice rose slightly, showing his displeasure, but I still didn't appear. I watched him search the bathroom, the study, the attic guest room. After repeatedly failing to find me, he finally lost his patience. Alicia, do you really have to be this unreasonable with me? Standing in the living room, Sam growled in a low voice. Seeing him like this, a wave of bitterness rose in my heart for no reason. I don't know why. Clearly, I no longer loved him. Yet seeing him like this still hurt like needles stabbing my heart. I didn't understand what he was angry about. In the 6 years we had been together, I rarely lost my temper, and arguments were few and far between, let alone being unreasonable. Fine, let's say I was being unreasonable this time. He could tolerate Nicole's willfulness again and again, so why couldn't he tolerate my one moment of unreasonableness? So what exactly was I to him? Sam took out his phone, seemingly wanting to call me, but after searching for a long time, he couldn't find my number. He opened WeChat to message me, but the result was the same. This girl, always doing such childish things. Sam rubbed the corner of his eyes in exhaustion, seemingly blaming Nicole for not being able to find my contact information. After all, Nicole had secretly deleted all my contact details from his phone several times while he was asleep. He gave up. In his mind, I would always contact him first anyway. He tossed the phone onto the sofa, took a shower, tidied himself up, and drove to the company. See? In his heart, there were always things more important than me. I began to look forward even more to the moment when he truly realized I had disappeared. Would he be sad, happy, or simply indifferent? Following Sam into the CEO's office, he began handling today's work. I sat on the sofa in his office, bored, watching him. Chapter 5. Looking at this office and the skyscrapers outside the floor-to-ceiling windows, I was reminded of the days 8 years ago when the company had just been founded. When I first started working beside Sam, I had just graduated from university. I came from the countryside and had finally managed to get into a university in City B through my own efforts. I didn't want to go back. I didn't want to return to that cramped little place. So I made up my mind to stay in City B. But reality was always cruel. The resumes I sent out were like stones thrown into the ocean, one after another, sinking without a trace. I no longer had enough money to support myself staying here. To save money, I could only live in a tiny basement of barely more than 10 square meters, eating the cheapest steamed buns and pickled vegetables every day while continuing to send out resumes and run all over the city. At the time, my thoughts were simple. As long as I could find a job here, earn enough to pay rent, and stay in this city, I would be satisfied. And then, by chance, I became Sam's assistant. At that time, his company had only just been established. Including me, there were only 5 people in the entire company. It was very different from the office building scene I had imagined, because back then the entire company was only as big as this one office. The company specialized in advertising design, which perfectly matched my major. But since the company had just started, there weren't many projects. My job was to organize client information, accompany him to run business deals one by one, and take him home when he drank himself into a stupor with clients. Those days were truly hard. Employees came and went. At the lowest point, only Sam and I remained. He had to secure business while staying up late writing proposals, drinking with clients until he developed a stomach perforation. In the end, I carried him to the hospital and stayed by his side for an entire week. After that, the doctor forbade him from drinking again, but business still had to be negotiated, and clients still had to be entertained. To keep him from risking his life, I raised the glass in his place. It was my first time drinking. To secure that big contract, I forced myself to raise the glass and kept pouring drinks down my throat. After just a couple of glasses, I lost all sensation. I could only feel my throat and stomach burning as if on fire. By the end, I didn't even remember how much I had drunk. In my haze, I could only see Sam looking at me with a face full of heartache, his eyes seemingly red. Chapter 6. In the end, we still didn't get that contract. When I was almost unconscious from drinking, Sam dragged me out of the private room. He pulled me out of the hotel. Before he could say anything, I leaned against the flower bed at the entrance and vomited violently. I vomited until the world spun, only then realizing how painful drinking was. Every time Sam got drunk, did he feel as terrible as I did now? Thinking of that, I cried. That was the first time I cried so uncontrollably in front of him. Does it hurt? Let's go to the hospital. The moment he saw me crying, Sam immediately lifted me into his arms. His voice was full of worry and distress. I buried my head in his chest and gripped his shirt tightly. I don't know whether the alcohol had clouded my mind, or his worried voice had pierced my heart, or perhaps both. I looked up at him and smiled. I'm fine, Sam. From now on, let me handle business deals like this. I will never forget the expression on his face then: shock, astonishment, refusal. He rejected me almost without hesitation. He knew better than anyone how cutthroat this industry was. As a woman, I was bound to be at a disadvantage. He strictly forbade me from attending drinking parties with him again, but he couldn't stop me from secretly negotiating deals on my own. I went behind his back and secured 2 contracts from drinking parties. In return, we had a fierce argument. His eyes red with anger, Didn't I tell you not to get involved in business? You secretly went to drinking parties, didn't you? It was the first time I saw Sam lose his temper at me. He blamed me for going to drinking parties without telling him. Do you know what kind of people are at those events? They could devour you without leaving a trace. The company's business is not something a woman like you needs to worry about. I'll figure something out myself. You'll figure something out? I don't know what came over me, but I lost my temper too. What can you do? The doctor said you can't drink anymore. Do you want to die of a stomach hemorrhage at the dinner table? That's still not something a woman like you should worry about. Then you'll just watch the company go bankrupt? That's none of your business either. Sam threw the contract in his hand to the ground and roared at me, as tears burst from my eyes. I seemed to see panic and heartache flash across his angry face. He looked at me helplessly, realizing his words had been too harsh. He reached out to wipe my tears. But the next second, I grabbed his hand. Sam, you can trust me, just this once. I will never let you down. At that moment, something hidden deep inside seemed to surface. He was the first to move. He pulled me into his arms. Chapter 7. This was the beginning of all my deep love. After an unknown amount of time, Sam seemed tired. Subconsciously, he reached out to the side, only to find empty space. Usually, whenever he became immersed in work, I would quietly enter his office and place a cup of freshly made coffee by his hand so he could stay alert. But today, there was nothing, and there never would be again. He frowned. Finally, he couldn't hold back his anger. He picked up the phone connected to the secretary's office and almost roared into it without warning. Where is Alicia? Didn't she come to the company today? What time is it already? Tell her to come to my office immediately. The person on the other end of the phone seemed startled by his sudden anger, or perhaps unable to understand what he meant. After a long pause, they spoke nervously. Boss, what are you talking about? Alicia, who is that? Our company has never had anyone named Alicia. The secretary's voice echoed clearly in the empty office. Sam froze, surprised by what the secretary said, but he was more inclined to believe that all of this was just a play I had orchestrated. After all, how could this be possible? The secretary soon arrived at the office. Facing Sam's questioning, he looked both frightened and confused. Sam, I've been by your side for years. I've never heard of you having an assistant named Alicia. Don't you remember? You only had a female assistant 10 years ago. But 1 year later, after Miss Nicole returned, she was dismissed. The secretary spoke with evidence and reasoning to make sure Sam believed him. He even had the HR department bring over a list of all company employees. Looking at the list, I could almost feel Sam's pupils trembling. He had never examined anything so carefully, afraid his eyes might miss my name, but he couldn't find it. How is this possible? Sam looked haggard in those usually calm and composed eyes. It was as if blood was about to seep out. His voice was low and hoarse. Is there a name missing from this list? You must have left her out. As he spoke, he suddenly remembered something. He walked to his desk, picked up a photo frame, and held it in front of the secretary. See this? The woman in this photo, my assistant. My wife, Alicia. She's Alicia. You can't possibly have never seen her. Sam was nearly losing control. The assistant was frightened by the redness in his eyes. After all, in front of the employees, Sam had always been cold, composed, and polite. They had never seen him like this, like a beast out of control, terrifying from the depths of one's heart. And besides, Sam, there's no woman in this photo. In the photo, there's only you. Chapter 8. The secretary was almost frightened into fainting. Not just him, anyone who saw that photo and heard Sam's words would feel a deep chill. Impossible. Sam growled firmly at the secretary, as if to confirm it. He flipped the photo frame in his hand. But the moment he saw the picture, he froze. This is impossible. This is impossible. His hoarse voice trembled as he stared at the photo of himself alone, repeating the same sentence over and over. This can't be. How could this be possible? Yes, how could it be possible? The person who had been waiting at home yesterday to celebrate their 3rd anniversary with him, how could she vanish overnight without a trace? He couldn't find my contact information. There was no trace of me in the company. Even the people who used to be around me had no memory of me at all. It was as if I had disappeared from this world without warning. Perhaps Sam's emotions were too terrifying. The secretary quickly found an excuse to leave. In the huge office, only Sam remained, gripping the photo frame tightly, looking completely lost. He clearly remembered that this photo had been taken the day we moved into this office building and watched the company's sign being hung up. That day was also the day he officially proposed to me. The phone rang. He snapped out of his daze, hurried to the desk, and picked up the phone. But the moment he saw the caller ID, the hope in his eyes faded. I suddenly found it a little funny. When he heard the ringtone, had he thought the caller would be me, and that all of this was just one of my pranks? Unfortunately, he was disappointed. Sam, where did you go? I just woke up and couldn't find you. I'm so scared being alone in the hospital. Can you come keep me company? Nicole's coquettish voice came from the other end of the phone. The disappointed Sam seemed to think of something. After patiently comforting her, he immediately rushed to the hospital. I could roughly guess what Sam was thinking. He probably wanted to confirm my existence with Nicole. After all, in his eyes, Nicole was his childhood sweetheart who had grown up with him, his first love, and the very reason he had chosen to start his business. Chapter 9. Nicole would never lie to him. At least, that was what he believed. But he probably didn't know that I had left him a surprise. I wonder whether he would cry tears of joy when he discovered it. Sam rushed to the hospital. In the VIP ward, Nicole was lying on the bed, bored out of her mind. The moment Sam pushed the door open and walked in, a smile immediately appeared on her face as she called out, "Husband, what took you so long? I'm so bored here alone in the hospital. What did you call me?" Sam froze, seeing Nicole lying on the bed with her arms open toward him. He stood at the doorway, unable to take another step. "Husband, what's wrong?" Nicole didn't realize anything was wrong with how she addressed him. When I wished for all traces of my existence to be erased, I specifically asked the system to alter her memories. In her memory, I didn't exist. There was only her childhood sweetheart bond with Sam, how she once left the country because she thought he couldn't give her a better life, and how she returned after he became successful, entangling with him for 3 years. No, something's wrong. Sam took half a step back. There was no longer any tenderness in his eyes. No, this isn't right. His eyes were bloodshot as he shook his head repeatedly, denying Nicole's words and perhaps denying the relationship itself. Seeing this, Nicole sensed something was wrong and frowned. "Sam, what's wrong? Don't you remember? We got our marriage certificate yesterday. On the way back, I was hit by a speeding electric scooter and hurt my hand. You brought me to the hospital. Look, we didn't even make it home yet. The marriage certificates are still here." As she spoke, Nicole took 2 brand new red booklets from her bag. The moment Sam saw the red covers, his eyes widened. He grabbed the certificates and opened them only to break down at the photos and names inside. Impossible. Impossible. He went nearly mad, tearing the marriage certificates into pieces, breathing heavily, eyes bloodshot and voice choked with sobs. He stared at Nicole. "How could I marry you? I'm already married to Alicia. How could I register a marriage with you? You're lying. Yesterday was my wedding anniversary with Alicia. How could I marry you yesterday?" Floating in the air, I didn't quite understand what he meant. What did he mean by how could he marry Nicole? Didn't Nicole always have a place in his heart? Wasn't she the first love he could never have? I helped him fulfill his wish. Shouldn't he be happy? But clearly, he wasn't. I watched him grab Nicole's shoulders. His eyes filled with questioning and madness. Tears fell from his red eyes, one drop at a time, endless panic. "Was it you? Where did you send Alicia? Where did you send my wife?" Nicole was terrified. Her pale face was filled with confusion and fear. After all, she truly had no idea who this Alicia was. "Sam, what's wrong with you? I'm your wife. Who is Alicia? How could there be another woman in your life?" Nicole didn't look like she was lying. She kept calling Sam's name, but all she got in return was a furious shout. "No, I don't believe you. You're a liar. I don't believe you." The tenderness and affection he once had for her were gone, replaced by endless hatred. "If you won't tell me, I'll find her myself. I will find her. My wife will always be only her. It will never be you." With that, Sam ran out of the ward. He began searching aimlessly at the milk tea shop beneath the company building. the park near our neighborhood, my favorite cafe, even the orphanage that once adopted me. But after searching through all the records, he still couldn't find any trace of my existence. He refused to give up. He couldn't believe that the woman who had been by his side for 8 years could vanish from the world overnight. He went to the police to report it, but based on his description, they searched through their records and found no one named Alicia. Chapter 10. I seemed to have never existed. I existed only in his memories. Sam broke down, returning to the home that once belonged to us. He could no longer hold himself together. Covering his mouth, he dropped to his knees at the doorway, watching his painful state. I could almost hear the sound of his emotions collapsing, echoing clearly in my ears. His broken sobs sounded especially painful in the empty house. He knelt in the entryway, where he could see the dining table at a glance. Last night, I had sat on that chair and said to him, "If I say that if you walk out that door today, I will die, would you still go to Nicole?" It seemed he had remembered. If he had looked more carefully back then, he would have seen that beneath my calm eyes was a storm of fear in the face of death. The expression on my face had been silent and sorrowful. It was me asking him for help. If he remembered those words from last night, he would surely remember what I had once said on the night of our first wedding anniversary. Joking as if it were nothing. If one day I'm bound to a system whose mission is to win you over and make your heart belong only to me, would you help me complete that mission? Leaning on his shoulder, it was the first time I had gathered the courage to tell him about the system, but I never got his answer. A phone call from Nicole took him away. I never received his answer, but in the following 2 years, his actions gave it to me. His heart had me in it, but it would never belong to me alone. Chapter 11. Sam hadn't gone to the company for a long time. He stayed home every day, locking himself in his room and drinking himself into a stupor. Thinking carefully about the past 8 years, there were few places that held shared memories of the two of us. Other than the company, it seemed only this house remained. His phone was constantly bombarded with company matters and calls from Nicole, but Sam ignored them. Only when he drank himself into oblivion could he remember the past we once shared. But they were not good memories. The good moments between us existed only in the 3 years before the company went public. When Nicole realized something was wrong and came to find him, Sam had already collapsed into a coma from stomach bleeding caused by long-term starvation and excessive drinking. Nicole endured the smell of alcohol on him and sent him to the hospital. But the first thing Sam said after waking up was to look for me. I was wrong, Alicia. I was wrong. I shouldn't have kept wavering. I shouldn't have abandoned you again and again for that damn youthful infatuation. Why did I think you would always stay by my side? I never deserved your trust or your love. It was me. I killed you. Sam seemed possessed. His eyes were red, but no tears fell. He stared blankly at the hospital ceiling as if I were there, calling my name again and again. Nicole nearly collapsed. She couldn't accept that another woman had suddenly appeared in Sam's life, just like when she returned from abroad and found me by his side. She questioned Sam again and again about who I was, accusing him of heartlessness and repeating the same old story about her 5 years of suffering overseas. But Sam shattered all her pretenses with just 2 sentences. Stop pretending. You never loved me. You just couldn't accept that something that once belonged to you was taken away. If I hadn't succeeded in starting my business, you probably would never have come back from abroad. Nicole staggered back in disbelief. She must have thought she had hidden it well. Never knowing that Sam had always known, he had simply been pretending to be clueless. Chapter 12. From the moment I realized this, I had already given up on Sam, but the system bound to me restrained me, keeping me firmly tied to his side. I watched myself walk step by step toward the end of death. Nothing could be more cruel than that. Fortunately, my efforts over the past 3 years were not in vain. I won. Floating in the air, a smile finally appeared at the corner of my lips. I lost? How is this possible? The system's doubtful voice echoed through the world again, and in that instant, time froze once more. How could I have judged wrong? Sam is selfish and cold to the core. How could he go mad with regret over losing something that was so easily within his reach? The system couldn't understand this change. It had seen far too many people like Sam. Their coldness and selfishness made it impossible for them to love one person, or one thing, exclusively. In their minds, nothing was irreplaceable. I may be easily replaceable, but habits are not, nor were the emotions I deliberately showed him. or the memories that deepened over time. I had once overheard the system talking about the hosts it had bound before me. Without exception, they had all failed. Before dying, their wishes were either to perish together with someone or to destroy certain people or things. So the moment I realized I might fail, I had already decided that if I died, I would never let Sam die so easily. That would be far too merciful. I wanted him to spend the rest of his life guarding memories of me, forever in unbearable pain. For that, I changed his living habits and left traces of myself everywhere he went. A glass of warm water placed by his hand, a cup of coffee, a photo on his desk, even the smallest details, seemingly insignificant, were carved deep into his heart, impossible to forget. This was meant to be my revenge before death. Yet, unexpectedly, it brought me a pleasant surprise. A temporary bet with the system. A bet is a bet. You should honor your promise. I curled my lips toward the system. According to our wager, it had to find me a new body in this world so I could continue living. You're the first one who has ever beaten me. The system sounded a little dejected, which filled me with an inexplicable sense of achievement. As expected, one should never place their life in a man's hands. Opportunities always belong to those who are prepared. Urged by me, the system admitted defeat and placed my soul into the body of a recently graduated college girl who had drowned herself in a lake over heartbreak. Chapter 13. The girl's family was well off, and by coincidence, her father turned out to be the owner of Sam's rival company. After adapting to this new body, I naturally joined my own company. Within a few years, relying on my previous experience, I took over the company. In the second year after taking control, I acquired the company Sam had once led. Standing in Sam's former office, I finally let go of everything. Years earlier, Nicole, as Sam's legal wife, had sent the regretful and lovesick Sam, who had gone mad, into a psychiatric hospital and taken over all his assets. When the company later faced financial trouble, she tried to flee with the money, but before she could leave the country, she was detained by the police at the airport. I had acquired the company that Sam and I once built together. The day after everything settled, I went to the psychiatric hospital where Sam was staying. Through the ward door, I saw Sam curled up on the bed, his expression vacant. Where was the cold, noble CEO from years ago? He had become thin and frail, his eyes dull, muttering to himself from time to time. Suddenly, as if sensing something, he looked toward me through the small window in the door. His breathing quickened. He stumbled toward the door, pressing himself against it. His eyes shattered as his lips trembled. Alicia. Alicia. Like a madman, he tried to break the ward door open, calling my name again and again, but I showed no reaction. I knew he had recognized me, but so what? The Alicia he spoke of had long since died. She died in his wavering selfishness and lived only in his memories. The nurses and doctors rushed in and forced him to the ground. Watching his broken, frantic eyes, I turned and walked away, leaving the past behind forever. Let him spend the rest of his life rotting in those memories, filled with repentance for me, and I will walk forward alone, searching for my own ending.